Welcome back. You're watching Young Turks, and we're talking with Kanwal Singh, Managing Partner and Co-founder at Fireside Ventures, Madhu Shalini of Managing Partner at Rocketship VC, and Karan Mohla, General Partner at B Capital. Madhu, let me come to you now and just address the global challenges that we are seeing. We've got SoftBank Group reporting losses once again, $5.22 billion, the fourth straight quarter of losses. We've got WeWork that has declared bankruptcy. Of course, WeWork India saying that they're not impacted by that. But the global macros as well as the global challenges, the likely impact of that on sentiment as well as funding here in India.
Absolutely. And I think before I get into that, I will say to the last question, Shereen, I have thoughts. There is, we have to sort of keep to the reality of the failure rates of startups. It's huge. It's over 90%, beyond 10 years. I think it was really important for India and as a global ecosystem for startups to keep trying and continuously sort of tweaking their models. Obviously, sustainability, profitability, unit economics, all of those things are really important. But we've always, told our startup founders to not become too scared during difficult times and sort of choke on the growth and choke on what needs to be sort of pumped in. If you are limping and you come out to the other side, you might as well have failed early. You have to continue to be very bold and brave. And one of the examples is that every decade there's new kinds of businesses that come up. It took a long time for Facebook to really sort of figure out what they were going to be doing in terms of monetization. For Twitter, for LinkedIn, there's just a lot of stories. And so you have an incredible amount of growth and you become big and you are constantly tweaking to figure out sort of, where do you land. But the one thing that is really, really important is to be brave and bold and take bets and just don't limp to the other side in a weak way. Of course, you have to be also careful about, other sort of practicalities as you do that. Balance is the key here. Having said that, there are stories like WeWork, which sort of go bust. It's part of the game. It really is. And, what shouldn't change is the way that investors look at, innovative startups, innovative founders, and you got to continue to take these risks and take them boldly. I don't think that India has been a really huge outlier even in the last 2 years. Things have been difficult outside, and we thought that the US, not doing well is going to affect India hugely, about 18 months back. Didn't happen, really. It was a little bit slower to catch up. I think that India has got a very robust ecosystem that's largely sort of couched by what's going on outside. Having said that, it's not going to be, it's not going to be completely unaffected by what's going on. But I do think that India's ecosystem is quite robust right now.
Kanwal, where are you going to put your money on? The top three themes, the top three, bets that you're likely to make in 2024?
I think the perennial favorite for us is always going to be FMCG. If you take any statistics, the penetration levels, even today, especially for products which are offering you better for you, good for you kind of products, we believe that will continue to be one of the big areas of focus. What we have done is we have started investing now also in the consumer health and consumer healthcare space. And we are finding that as a great extension of our overall thesis of looking at consumer brands. And we certainly see ourselves doubling down on that. We have already done several investments in the areas like probiotics, diabetes, fertility, and so on and so forth. And besides that, we are also seeing a lot of disruption happening in the home space. And we believe that, that's another, trend for the new millennial and the emerging Gen Zs, where they are very home proud and they are looking for almost disrupting everything that is done in the house. So these are three, I would say, headline areas that we are looking at. If I may add a slightly different twist to the answer, we also believe that the growth of the next decade will also be driven largely by what we are calling India 2. And that is, again, an emerging class of consumers who are very savvy, very connected, but not yet transacting so much online, and still, trying to figure out their own, rhythm of purchases. And that's a market which we believe can really become a very large opportunity. So those are, I would say, the headline trends. I agree with Karan, but from a different twist. I think brands from India going global is the next big hope. And personally, I'm extremely excited about, at least in my lifetime, seeing some mega brands which were made in India, but for the world. And we are very excited that that could happen in the next decade, for sure, certainly for sure.
Karan, let's talk about the top bets that you're going to be making, given the opportunities that you see. And I also want to pick up on what we have seen in the D2C space, because we started by talking about Mamaearth, but what we didn't talk about was what happened with Carrot Lane and that big exit for the founders in favor of Tanishq. And, to Kanwal's point, we've seen a lot of FMCG companies picking up D2C players, etc. Do you see a lot of those kinds of strategic deals go through in 2024 as well?
Sure. So let me take the first part of the question. I think for us, we look at a lot of the cross-border SaaS and B2B opportunities from India for two reasons. I think one, just on SaaS, the whole ecosystem and the playbook to build out of India for the world, largely centered around the US, has been proven. There are tens of companies that are at significant amount of scale. I think Freshworks going public and a few others that are likely to go public are great examples and milestones that we all can look forward to. And there is a huge and a very growing ecosystem of founders and executives that are in that ecosystem that are continuously building on that. So that's a fast growing area which we think will continue to only grow exponentially. Besides that, I agree with Kanwal on healthcare. I think that's an area that we are spending a ton of time. We just recently released a report with BCG on the digital healthcare opportunity in India. We think that's going to be massive. I think the thing with healthcare to just keep in mind is, it has its own pace of growth. So you cannot look at it as a tech company or as a consumer company, it's a healthcare company. But if you just look at the profit pools, if you look at the demands that's there and where technology can play a role, it is massive, whether it's top down or just bottom up. So health is one. And then, areas like climate and sustainability, again, both for India, because the needs and requirements of India are so unique different than the rest of the world. But there are also companies that are starting to build out from India for the rest of the world, largely around software and digital platforms. But again, they're following the same playbook as what the SaaS and B2B platforms have done. And look, that's an area that requires not billions, but trillions of dollars of capital over the next 20, 30 years. And to the second part around the Carrot Lane acquisition was a process that took some time to happen, and I think Mithun and team have done a phenomenal job. I've been fortunate to know him for a few years, and they did a great job just building the asset the right way. They found a strategic partner, and I think that's very symptomatic of the kind of behavior that we're seeing from large Indian corporates. I think consumer and FMCG are probably the first, but if you look at other areas, there we do think Indian corporates will be a large pool of strategic acquirers for startups for years to come. It's not actually, unlike the US, we always thought it would be large US companies which will be that. And there may be bits and pieces, but the domestic pool of acquirers is a large pool over there. We saw this in a different way in one of my previous companies in First Cry. We acquired the Mahindra business in the baby care, which was a reversal of the trend. Those are the kinds of the meeting of the minds of the traditional world and the startup world, and that 1 + 1 is not 2; it's really 11. And I think that's really the thought process to build on top of.
Well, Kanwal, Madhu, and Karan, many thanks for joining us with your take on 2023, but more importantly, with what the future holds for 2024, and for sharing your top picks with us. That's it then on this edition of Young Turks. Here's wishing each one of you a very happy and prosperous Diwali from all of us. We will take a break and return with the news right after this.